people's interpretations of it was. But like as well as I do as a musician, you got to kind of let things go. If it's bad, that's one thing. But let it happen and without being overly scrutinizing about
that is probably one of my favorite albums because it is so well done, and in my eyes, it gives each and every one of them an opportunity to do a lot more than they normally do, because really, really show what they could do. I mean, Les Claypool and Stuart Copeland were always those kind of guys, but when Trey Anastasio plays guitar, this, as far as I'm concerned, between his solo albums and Fish, this is by far one of the albums where he really shows you what he can do and what a crazy guitarist he is.
Totally, and I was just thinking too, Mike Gordon ended up cutting a record with Leo Kottke.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right around the same time. And that's a total departure for him. Kottke, his big Americana acoustic guitar-like slide stuff that he does. And Mike was playing very differently as a result, but so was he. And it just created a really interesting little project, a side project. I think that's really healthy to do. I've known so many musicians in my life, and probably, 8 or 6 people that are all really tight. That when the band's needs to fill out, and there's a tour there and good money, there's about 5 or 6 of us that are always willing to play. But it's always healthy going away from that and then coming back, because not like it gets incestual, but you rely too much on each other, and going out, you get hungry, and you sort of carve new ways of looking at things, and you're forced to just because of circumstance. Then when you come back to that, like you just said, why did I stop listening to that? You realize how effortless it seems because of that connection that you have, but you've released all that other stuff and you're just listening again. You're playing again. You're enjoying again. Kenny Werner, an American piano player, wrote a book called Effortless Mastery. Okay. And that's one of the things that's in the book. It's like this 2-week cycle of not playing your instrument on purpose, not even jamming with other people but literally getting completely away from it. So you still have that young childlike mentality of the first time you heard music. When you come back to it, it becomes this different experience, supposed to, not like you're going through the same thing over and over again, but we do this as artisans. We go through these bell curves, and then we grow, and then we go, and then we keep doing this, hopefully, over the course of our lives. And I think it's healthy. It's just like experimenting with different instruments. Oh. If you sit down in front of something you don't know too well, you might not be that proficient at it, but that kind of figuring out headspace is the same thing, man.
Well, exactly, and that's why I like going back to these albums, because when I first started listening to it again, I think to myself, I remember when I heard this song, or the first single I heard off this album, I remember why and when I went out and bought it too. And that's I can relate, most people, a lot of people can relate a lot of stuff, music, certain time periods, or when and where you bought this, or why you bought it, or the first time you saw the band live.
Well, that's just it. Even music itself has that. You grow with it. I mean, when I was a kid, it was like Buddy Holly and Eddie Cochran and the Beatles. I mean, I still love the Beatles. I still love Buddy Holly. I still love Eddie Cochran. But then high school was all about AC/DC and Sabbath and, hard rock from the 70s, anything. And then that bled into, believe it or not, classical music and jazz music. And I've always loved country and folk music. And it all kind of melds, but those growth periods. I mean, when I was in college, it was like, no, it's just jazz. And I started to realize from teaching for so long, a lot of the kids that I was mentoring that were getting into that headspace, invariably, I would find myself always saying, and it'll always hopefully come back to that, don't forget where you come from.
Exactly.
Those little things that, are intrigued you about music are still there. Who is it again? I can't remember. A good friend of mine, Adam Smill, he's a jazz guitar player from Toronto. He's living down in New York City right now, but he used to do a great version of Nirvana's Smell Like Teen Spirit.
Nice.
Right, but swung. And it was fun because it was the cross-referencing. Gil Evans Orchestra did a whole bunch of Hendrix numbers.
Oh, right on.
46-piece orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Doing Burn the Midnight Lamp.
Nice.
Check it out. It's wild stuff. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the thing. Music is supposed to be malleable.
Right.
It's supposed to be pliable. people. It doesn't necessarily fit in a box.
Well, it's the one last reference I'm going to make to a collaboration that kind of came from different genres of music, but somewhat similar, was them Crooked Vultures, and that was Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters, Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, and John Paul Jones from Zeppelin. And that was a crazy mix. When I heard that for the first time, I was like, really? It's like, and then you can sort of hear the influence, and the way as the album progresses, you can tell where certain influences lie, but it's still cool because one of my favorites, and it's more of a mix of a let's say Queens of Stone Age and Led Zeppelin, and this song is called Interlude with Ludes.
Okay.
And that's got the kind of trippy Led Zeppelin side to it.
Right.
But got that kind of like almost trying to think of the right way to put it. Apart from the Queens of the Stone Age, some of their earlier stuff, so not heavy, but that's kind of twisted into it, at least the way Josh Homme's singing it. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that's one of the best songs on that album because that really is. They sit there, it's like you're singing in a time warp, right? Just because of the vocals and the digital delays so.
True, but that's the thing. I guess, I was talking about this the other day with somebody when I was cutting a record at Phase 1. Jack Douglas, the producer, was there working with the Trews. The Trews had hired him to come up, and Jack was one of the last person to see Lennon before he was shot. I mean, he left the studio with Jack and literally was shot in front of the Dakota 25 minutes later, kind of a thing, right? So where was I going with this? The experience, the studio. So what they were trying to bring was that feeling that Jack had. It would be like if I had asked Eddie Kramer to come and help me in the studio, it may have a certain sound. Jaco Pastorius would always say this. He'd go like, well, I may play a certain figure in a certain way, and you'll just know that it's me because it's a signature lick. I mean, even when I was at Humber, we had like these books that were called 251 books, and it was like classic Charlie Parker 251 licks. Classic John Coltrane 251 licks. Classic, Ellington compositional chording ideas over 1625 thing. So they were literally taking those artists' ideas, showing them to you,
right,
allowing you to feel them under your fingers, to feel the flow of where these ideas had the possibility of going. Not that you had to copy them,
right?
Because you can hear some people go, "Man, is that ever sound like so and so?" Because they spent their entire life sounding like that person, not really finding their own originality. That's fine.
Right.
They're great at what they do, but at the same time, again, music is supposed to be malleable. To play with it as much as you possibly can is the most important thing. And, that's one of the things, I guess, for me, being still less attuned to, let's say, the digital aspect of what music is today, because I still play physical instruments. I'm not programming things.
Right.
I'm not using drum machines. And the new record has a couple of samples on it, but we did it on purpose. The reality of it is that I guess that organic feeling has to be there for me, even in the discovery process. And I can't always find it with a machine. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and that makes perfect sense. Just because, I mean, the sound you coming out, you want this sound to be something you created, not created on a machine, but created yourself on an actual instrument. So I totally get that.
Or the standalone feel of what the art has to offer. I mean, if I had the band playing with me on Friday night, the tunes would sound like they sound on the record, different,
right,
but they would be full. I still can go out and play those tunes in a solo fashion, and they still carry because the stories and how I came across them, or maybe I should say how they came across me,
right,
are why I try to sing them, why I say those things that I do. So again, it comes from a very organic place. So if it's with a band on a stage in front of thousands of people with a PA system and lights, and that's one thing. But it could be just you and I hanging out on a park bench singing to somebody, and talking about the music. It's all part of the same thing, organic, real, and for me, why I do it. It's like growing food, man.
Absolutely. We're gonna get to one of your songs off your new album, Red Omen, in just one more moment, because just reminding me, this was about 2 months ago. I was in my backyard, and my house backs out onto a path. So there's people walking up and down all the time. And the one evening, and this was just, I know it might not be the right term, but right choice of words, but it seemed completely random to me. There's these people walking the path one way, and there's these two women the other way, and they stopped and started singing. and they're singing all in French. So I got my buddy with me, so I'm translating to him, kind of quietly translating to what they're saying, and it was really cool. It was just like literally just like an improv show out of nowhere, and like it was awesome. So we were just leaning on my gate, like listening to this. This is amazing. And of course, they were done. We were getting a huge round of applause, and they're surprised because they didn't know we were watching them, eh?
Right.
And it was awesome, man. Like that was one of the best nights of the summer. It's like, this is amazing, because we both looked at it like, this is great.
Yeah, see, but that's the thing, eh? Like, when I'm in Jamaica, I have that experience so often. I mean, I'm always walking around with a guitar, but anywhere at any point in time, like, it's not like it's like flooding on the streets, but people are always playing and singing and doing stuff, like, especially younger kids and between the ages of 10 and 20 something. It's just kind of happening on porches. People are waiting for a taxi, so there's an old log on the side of the road, and 15 people all singing and playing a tune together. Like, that's what I get off on, right? Is that sort of immediate experience like you had with the people all of a sudden singing. It's the feeling that's being created in that spot that you remember for such a long period of time. You didn't need a sign or somebody to put it on a show. It's just the feeling that it created in such a simplistic fashion. That's what makes it real, you know. Even when I'm playing on a stage and I know there's like a couple thousand people. I was down in Asheville for the award ceremony a year and a half ago, and I'm thinking to myself, and I do this with big audiences. It's kind of crazy. I know they're there, and I talk to them, and I sing to them, and I look at them, but so much of what I'm doing is encapsulated inside of this little bubble, right, in a weird way, where I'm really trying to allow it to be more than just the experience of playing the tune, but to really allow the original reason why I wrote the tune to come through in those moments. And it may be like, kind of like people like, what do you mean a bubble? You know, like, it's just, I really try to, you know, Carlos Santana, when I was very young, I heard him talking about projection and the importance of the energy behind something. And he said something very profound, which was like, it doesn't have to be overly complicated, even if it's something simple. But if you play it like you mean it, it's a testament that you're greater than the sun. And I remember hearing that, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, that's what it's supposed to be about. And then the reception, or how the reaction from the audience to the tunes, that's all a big part of it. But I'm really always trying to conjure that electrical energy in some kind of a way. And for me, you know, again, that's what makes it real. I guess that's why people like coming to see me play. They like the music because it translates on that same level.
Right on. So we're going to get to a song from your new album, Red Omen, which, by the way, guys, if you haven't picked up yet, is really, really good. So I wouldn't waste any more time.
Proudly made in Canada.
This one's called I Am Love. Ed Roman off Red Omen. Dig this.
Any other human being whose cruciform control, no longer in search of meaning, I'll utilize my soul to be a messenger, to be a radical, to be loved, be a messenger, be a radical, be loved. Falling from the matrix, why is what can set you free. And if you look behind the curtain and then into the mirror, then I think you'll see. Be a messenger, be a radical, be a radical, be love.